What's up, fitness friends? It's Jason and Ryan bringing you guys another episode of the Conquer Athlete podcast, brought to you by our friends over at the Coach RX podcast network. We're bringing you guys another hot take, another conversation, this time more on the mental side of training, talking about dealing with setbacks and how I think through our experience, we can offer a little bit of perspective about reframing losses, as lessons. Our sport is complex. It's a long season for some athletes, right? If you're focused on more than just the open, there's highs and lows. There's injuries, there's bumps and bruises, there's performances that maybe you thought you were really going to excel at and maybe didn't quite show out the way you wanted. And we're going to dive into all that today, right? Mr.
I thought you were about to go into another opening remark or statement, so I was waiting for it.
No.
There's a pause and an entry for me.
Yeah. Well, you've told this story a million times, but when I was thinking about this topic, you dealt with the ultimate setback that, as you evolved from competitive basketball into the sport and getting into strength training, getting into coaching, that kind of evolution, you were forced into making a change because of that. Yeah. And I thought we could kind of lead with that, not necessarily the story, maybe touch on the story to give a little bit of context, but mostly just give the athlete perspective of that. And then we can start to kind of tailor this more to the sport itself.
Yeah. So as Ryan said, my basketball career ended. I was forced out. I didn't choose to step away. And it happened through a freak accident. And I've told the story 1,000 times, so I'll try to summarize it quickly in case there's people listening that haven't heard the story. Dealing with setbacks is extremely challenging. I think it comes a lot down to the foundation that the athlete and the person has.
Well, hold on. Before you get into the stoic explanation of all this, I want people to know that you were almost a peg leg.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Okay.
This is leading into the story.
Okay.
And I say that because when I was playing basketball, when I was coming up, I was brought up Catholic. I went to church all the time. And I never had pressure from my parents. They never pressured me to be an athlete. They never pressured me to be good at a sport. But somehow, I generated this immense amount of pressure on myself to have to be the best, to have to be good, right? And a lot of how I viewed myself as a person came down to if I had a good basketball game or not. And that started at a very, very young age. I remember, before I even got to high school, if there were kids on a team that scored more than me, got looks at to get recruited to high school over me, it really messed me up. I was like, why isn't it me? Why not me? I work harder than everybody. Why is this not happening to me? And somehow, and I don't know where that came from, right? But because, like I said, it was never my parents were you got to be good. You got to do this. They could care less. They didn't do anything, right? So to me, I was always dealing with setbacks. I think the one thing that kept me in the game, that same passion that brought me so much, I don't want to say anxiety, but whether it was hardships, mental hardships, was also the same passion that fueled me to keep fucking going through the setbacks. So this almost double-edged sword. And when I got to college, I still had to deal with setbacks. The first college I went to, the coach that recruited me left, new coach came in, brought all the players that he wanted to reshape the team the way he wanted to reshape it. And I wasn't really part of that picture. So that was a huge setback because to me, it was I was a man at my high school. I'm going to play at this college and I get there and it's I'm not even on the dude's fucking roster, right? It's and I'm my God, right? And that was the first, but again, the passion just kept fucking fueling me. So I left, I went to another school and I continued to have that passion to push, but I also had that passion of not having a foundation. I wouldn't call that a passion because if I didn't play good, I was a disaster. I don't want to say I was bipolar or depressed, but I would straight up fucking hate myself. And there would be times when other players would get looks at for overseas and stuff, and I wouldn't. And it just really, really messed with me. And then I got overseas. I got there. So I'm kind of painting a picture of kind of the detriment that this injury had on my life because to me, it was things weren't going my way. I wasn't able to take a step back and appreciate the journey. I love training. Training gave me a hard on. I would wake up and train every single day and And I looked forward to training. I looked forward to outworking people every single time, right? Like that was my thing. So when people didn't train as hard as me and did better than me, like that, I was like, why does this even happen? Like, how is this? That's not supposed to happen, right? But it did, and it happened a lot, right? And no one was there to talk me through that, and no one was there to kind of mentor me when I was a young kid. And I finally got overseas. I get there on a team, we're playing in Holland, and I came back and I was supposed to be going to Norway. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, like I didn't know it then, but like my grit and my resilience paid off, right? I wouldn't call it that, but I was like, yeah, I'm fucking there. I made it, right? I'm getting my contract and I'm going to Norway. To me, it kind of like solidified my life, right? Because it solidified all the hard work that I put into basketball, all the sacrifices, all the selfishness, you know, skipping parties, not hanging out, not having girlfriends, not going to family functions, all the shit I did. I was like, fuck, like finally, like I can see something from it because I was too blinded to see what I already had from it. Right? So many things. So I get there and I come home. I'm home for like a week. I'm supposed to be leaving on like a Monday or something. It's Friday. Mow my parents' lawn and I trip on an air conditioning unit, which I thought was like right behind me, but it was farther back. I took a big step. And as I fell, my foot came up and the lawnmower came in over my foot. And it's so like my foot went into the blade and it like pop, pop. And I sat there and, you know, you always hear these people talk about like time slowing down and, you know, it's like this weird occurrence of time in life when you go through like a big tragedy and it's fucking true. Like that happened and it's like, I can recall everything to this day. And I like threw the lawnmower off and like, I wouldn't look down. I was like, no, you know, like in my mind, I'm like, no, there's no way that this just happened. Like all my hard work finally paid off. I finally have something I can hang my hat on for my hard work for this sport, for my passion for this sport. I finally can, you know, have a seat at the table with being at a professional level, which has been my goal since I was a kid. And like now it's over. Like it was taken from me. I was like, there's no way this just happened. And I looked down finally, you know, and everything was like slow-mo. I looked down, like my shoe is like ripped open and my toes are just hanging, right? And at that point, like everything was just like black to me. I'm like, holy fuck. I felt no pain. I felt nothing. It was all just like adrenaline shock of like that surge of adrenaline is crazy because I felt nothing except the only thing I felt was like sorrow for myself, you know? And then I'm like, and like no one was home. It was like a Friday, everyone's working. None of my neighbors around. It was like 1 PM. And I'm like, what the fuck am I gonna do? So I take my shirt off, I tie it around my foot, I tie it as tight as I could tie it. And I hop in my house. I grab the phone, I call 911. I call my buddy. It's funny, like my buddy I called, you know, you call the person that you know, no matter what, is going to answer the phone and be there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't call my best friend. I didn't call the people I was close with because in my head, I'm like, they might not answer the fucking phone right now. I need to call someone. And it sucks because the person I called was a very good friend of mine who got wrapped up in drugs, OD'd and died a couple years later. But I lost contact with him because he got wrapped up in drugs. And it's like we had a falling out. But he was the first one I fucking called when I was like, all right, who do I know will answer their phone and fucking come do something for me, right? I was like, I'm calling this dude. So I called him. Well, I called my parents. And I was like, it was like, as you getting this call from your kid, right? I'm like, hey, mom, you know, dad, I chopped my foot off with the fucking lawnmower. Like, please come home.
Yeah.
They're like, what? And I'm like, I gotta fucking go. Like, I'm gonna pass out. And I call him. I'm like, bro, like, chop my foot off. I need something. So then I hang up and I'm just fucking laying there on my floor. And it was crazy because we used to live as a kid, like up on these hills and like these back roads. It was the hardest spot to get to. And I swear to God, it felt like an hour for the ambulance to fucking get there. So I'm laying there, no drugs, just fucking sitting there. Like now the pain is creeping in, right? And I'm just like, you gotta be like, I'm like, just kill me. Something come from somewhere and fucking just take me right now, right? Because between the pain and the disappointment of having, so now like in my mind, from a setback standpoint, I'm like, I'm a failure. Like I didn't fucking do it, right? So between that and the pain, I'm just like, something just take me. And I finally get to the hospital and we go to Yale New Haven. If you guys aren't familiar with Yale New Haven, it's a very, very known hospital. It's very big, but also very fucking popular for homeless people, drug addicts, and fucking stabbings and shootings. Like it's like a main hospital. So we get there on a Friday fucking night. It's packed. It's packed. I can't even get into a room. So right now I'm at a table and yeah, my foot's chopped off, but I'm not dying. So I'm just like out in the hallway on a fucking table, right? Just sitting there. I'm like low priority on the totem pole. And I'm so drugged up and my mom's standing there like next to me and they kind of like take the bandage off my foot and I'm looking at my foot and the blade cut it from underneath my foot, not the top. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like, that's not fucking bad. I'm like, I might be able to come back, right? I might be able to kind of get there. So my mom like walks around the table to look at it, and like her face turns white. And I'm like, shit, this is bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is bad. So then I go, I get into the room and the doctor's like, hey, we're gonna do tests, see if you can feel it. I'm like, okay. And it's kind of set up so I couldn't really see the doctor. He kind of walks to the foot. He's like, all right, you feel this? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I didn't do anything yet. I'm like, shit.
Shit.
He's like, you feel this? And I'm like, no, I don't feel anything right now. So he was like, okay. And it was so dirty and corroded from the blade. And what happened is it chopped all the meat off my foot right down to the bone and the joints. The bones of my foot were sticking out, and there's nothing there covering it. So I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. I called up my agent and I was like, hey, like, I think I'm done. It's crazy, right? Because you see these pictures of like Kobe having his moment. Like Kobe blew out his Achilles, right? He fucking like walks to the free throw line, makes 2 free throws, walks out, and he comes back in a year, right? I'm like, man, could I fucking like come back? And I'm like, maybe, but I didn't have, $80 million a year to get the
$80 million contract.
and like recover from it, right? I was like, so anyways, I was in hospital for 3 weeks, which was terrible because it's more just alone time. I'm sitting in the hospital, like, again, the setback of just not fulfilling what I felt I needed to fulfill as an athlete, understanding that like my dreams are done. It was over. There's nothing I could do about it. And then for 3 weeks, thinking that they were gonna have to amputate my toes. 1, 2, 3. I didn't fucking know. They were like, we might have to amputate just because of the exposure to dirt, debris in the air, and the joint is fucked. So it was bad, man. And like, I understand what a lot of Olympians go through. Olympians at some point, I don't know if they still do, forgive me if anyone's listening, my numbers are wrong, but have this huge suicide rate when it gets done, because it's like, your entire life is just one thing and it's over. For me, it was like my entire life was at a much lower, smaller fucking level, but still the same concept was for this one thing. And then it was done, it's over, got taken away, right? And there's nothing left for me to do. And for me, I didn't understand who I was without basketball. I didn't understand, like, I thought I was liked, I was enjoyed, I got girls, whatever, because of who I was as a basketball player, right? Friends liked me because of that. So when it was over, I'm sitting in the hospital for like 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I never had suicidal thoughts, but I was like, this is, like, I don't know what the fuck to do with my life, right? So I definitely spiraled after that. I was like racing motorcycles. I was fucking reckless. Like, I never got into drugs, thankfully, but I think because of my dad's situation of being an alcoholic and a bunch of other things, I never went that way because I feel like I just couldn't. But as far as like fighting, racing motorcycles, like just being completely reckless in other areas, I was. And it took me, like, it was hard for a very long time. When I used to tell this story, I would cry, probably up to about like 7 years ago. Like, it was very challenging for me to even tell the story because I still never really recovered from it or truly understood the reason behind it, right? Like, looking back now, it's crazy, right? It's like, we live in this simulation world, however you want to be, but I think we do. And it's like, that happens. I meet Jocelyn, who's my wife, everything else, my whole other world kind of transpires from that point into who and where I am now from that. And it was like, that didn't happen. What does my life become? Do I bounce around in Europe playing semi-pro ball, making, $800 a fucking month, living in fucking who knows where, right? Just because I want to keep the dream alive. And then I come back and I do what with myself? Who knows, right? So it's crazy how things happen, but that's something that I talk to athletes about. And I try to work a lot with my son because he's so young, right? And when I work with athletes now, I try to have these conversations with them of just getting them to have some form of foundation of who they are without the sport. It's like, because I think that's so important, because you never know when it can be taken away from you. You never know when you might just lose your love and not want to do it anymore, right? But if you don't understand who you are, if you don't understand that resilience, to me, it becomes very challenging to have that resilience, which is bouncing back from setbacks, which is the premise of what we're talking about. Having that grit to keep pushing forward, and to me, there's this very thin line of too much and not enough, because when I was doing it, when I was training, I was fucking obsessed with it, right? And I still look back, like, I wasn't obsessed enough, meaning like I did 500 jump shots a day. I should have did a fucking 1,000 jump shots a day, right? I should have did more, right? But like back then when I was in it, without having any direction of what I needed to do, everything I did in my life was around, from what I knew without anybody talking to me, was for the sport and of basketball, my training, my running, my sacrifices. And you need that. And I don't think enough people have that. Like, I'll talk to some high school, college kids now who will tell me they want to play more in college. I'm like, well, how many times a day do you drill? And they're like, oh no, I'll play about 2-3 days a week. I'm like, wait, what? Are you fucking kidding me? Like I play 3 times a fucking day on top of strength training, on top of running, on top of doing everything I fucking possibly could. And it was this form of obsession and passion, which I think is a thin line, right? Passion and obsession is a very thin line, which can go either way. And I think to me, to become great, you have to tiptoe on both sides. You have to be obsessed and you have to be passionate, but you have to have that foundation and understanding of who you are as a person and how it's more than just a sport. So you don't feel like a failure when things don't go your way, right? Which I did. And that's something I talk a lot about with people is because, dude, I would like, if I missed my first 2 shots of a basketball game, or like, let's say I scored 10 points and not 27, like I was a failure. I was a loser. I sucked. I should never fucking play again. You know, I'd be crying. It was crazy how much pressure I put on myself. Like, I don't know how I kept going with how much pressure I put on myself. And I see that with a lot of athletes and younger people. And I think that's something that can go either way with people being able to keep pushing through setbacks or not. For me, once that setback occurred, it was very hard for me to acknowledge it and reframe it and take action. Like it took a very long time. And I think I did. Like I'll talk to you right now, but yeah, I definitely acknowledged it. I reframed it. But all I did was take that obsession and move it into something else without accepting who I was and what happened. Right? Like I took it and I moved it into other things in my life. CrossFit, owning a business, being a coach, right? And I got to be the best coach. I got to get X amount of people to the games. I got to do this. I got to have this many members in my gym. Like it was never healthy for me until recently. Like I just kind of took that, I fucking covered that up and I put it into this and this and this, right? And I don't think it really shifted to me from a healthy standpoint of accepting, acknowledging, being able to reframe it and take healthy action, right? Until I really started having kids, I think, if I'm really going to get honest.
So you think having kids allowed for the shift in perspective?
When my kids started playing sports, I needed to dive deeper into making sure that they didn't have those issues. And I think that's what shifted my perspective.
Yeah. So talk about that. Talk about you dealing with that, or you having that situation with your foot. And then up until 7 years ago, you're like, I didn't do enough. And then there was a shift in perspective, right? Which makes sense. Like Abby coming along, getting married, all of that. What do you think, like now that you're so many years past it, what do you think is the actual lesson learned from going through that to where you are now? Is the lesson, don't take, what you have right now for granted? Is it don't take life too serious? Is it, have a life outside of a sport? And like, if it is that, I want to know, because like, I know how hyper obsessive you are. Can you become great balancing those two things?
I don't think so. I don't think you become great with balance. I think there's the closer you get to the pinnacle or the peak for anything, there's counterbalance. I think in life there's counterbalance. And to me, like, and I'll get back to your question in a second, but that's one of the strongest weight in a good way that my wife gives me, because she knows how off balance I can get on certain things, and she'll be like, okay, time to come back over here, right? Time to put the work away, time to be with the family, time to stop training, time to come over here, right? And we used to fight on that, but she never let up, and I applaud her for that. And it's something that I think kind of saved our marriage, was her ability to communicate with me no matter what, no matter where I was, and forcing me to communicate with her. But what I'm saying is, for people to be great, there has to be in their life, there will not be balance unless it's a balance of what they need to do to be great, if that makes sense. Now, what was my biggest life lesson from that? I think it comes down to, because I don't look back and regret anything. I don't regret my sacrifices. I don't regret my time training. I don't regret the injury. I don't regret a thing. I almost think I wish I fucking did more. I wish I had someone to be like, this is how you should be strength training. Like, this is how many days you really need to strength train. Like, this is what you should be doing when you're training basketball, right? I was like solo my entire life with that shit back then. My life lesson is it comes down to having a strong foundation, not in a higher power, but in yourself. And I say that because I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in heaven and hell. And I used to go to church all the time. I have a strong belief in that. But that didn't matter to me. Like, they'd be like, oh, like, God still loves you. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I missed 10 jump shots. Like, that doesn't fucking matter to me, right? To me, it always came, now that I look back, it's like, stronger you know who you are without that passion, without that sport, if it's taken away from you, if you can still have an understanding and an acceptance and a love for who you are and know that that doesn't make you who you are, I think then your time can become even better with your passion and your drive. That's my biggest lesson for myself. And something I talk to people about all the time. If I relate it to other things, like, all right, like the game gets over. Did you give your best effort? Were you coachable? And did you have fun? If you can check all those things off and you know how to check those off, then it's a success. From a standpoint of skill sets, yeah, you might have good games, you can have bad games. Those are the ebbs and flows. But the better you can handle the setbacks and the failures, if you view them as a failure, the more successful you're going to be in the long run. Because to me, to be really good at a sport, whether we're talking baseball, basketball, CrossFit, it's at some level, it comes down to the people that can become more resilient with, I'm going to say failure, right? But I'm not saying like we'll just call it what people generalize it. The people that can handle failure and deal better with failure. Those are the people that are able to continually go further and higher than someone else. Someone that might be more skilled, but they can't handle failure. They can't have that resilience to get back up and keep going from the other person. And then when you put the person who understands who they are and they have a strong foundation in themselves outside the sport, then that person, to me, can accept the journey better.
So what's your framework of dealing with failure? Whether, personal framework or, coaching framework, like everybody's got a process. Like what's your system in navigating that?
Now, honestly, for me, right, it comes down to, I sit back and I say, okay, if I lose everything, Joss, Abby, Cam, and Meadow are still going to love me. Nothing's going to change from them. Sure, like some aspects of, I don't even know the term I'm looking for, of life will shift and adjust, but their love for me will never change. And that to me allows me to accept the ebbs and flows of things that I'm passionate about a lot better and a lot more. Because what matters most to me in my life is my family, right? And now there's two folds to that. The first fold is they matter the most to me in my life. So if I fail at something, to me, it's like, well, it doesn't matter because what matters most to me is still going to be there. It's never going to change, alter, and it really doesn't fucking matter to them if I fail, right? But that also makes me more fragile because I have more to lose with certain things. I might go for it, right? Whether we're talking about business exploration or whatever, I'm now more fragile because I have more to lose and something I'm more passionate about of losing, right? Like when I was, you know what I'm saying? So that's my framework of where I am in my life now. The framework I work with my son at a young age is different. Like I never, ever would talk to him about what he did bad. I will never, ever talk to him about how many shots he missed or if he went over 3, unless he wants to talk about it. I also will never harp on and overdo it if he has an amazing game. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it can be either way, right? But one thing I always try to talk about, no matter what happened, is his attitude and his effort throughout it, right? Like, all right, were you coachable? Were you a good teammate? Did you try your best? And did you have fun? And I'm like, if you can check off those 4 things, everything else will come around at some point with the ebbs and flows of the sport. So with young kids, those are the things that I try to instill in them from the beginning. With athletes who are older, let's call it high school, college athletes, CrossFitters, what have you, my framework for them is getting them to understand who they are without the sport. And there's different methods that I try to utilize for that. A lot of it is conversation, one-on-one talks. But I feel like the more that they can accept who they are without it, the more that they can become resilient when things aren't going well.
No, that makes perfect sense. Take it even a step more granular, not so like finding your purpose outside of the sport. I completely agree with that. I think that that's huge. I think we're just so comfortable in the way we live our lives that we try to tell ourselves that this is way more important than what it actually is. And we need a level of grounding to maintain a level of perspective. Talk about kind of like, the athletic season or the competition season. Like for some athletes, they're kind of building up, peaking, competing, and then coming down like multiple times throughout the year. And it's not realistic to be peaked all year. Like it's just not possible to compete at your best all year round. So how do you have those conversations? Because like I know my process of post competition, and I firmly believe that like every setback is a lesson if you are open enough to allow yourself to look. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I approach it. Like, do you approach it in a similar way, or are you a little bit more open on the front end and you're like, listen, this probably isn't going to be like the competition that you really, really excel at based on what we're working on, and just your experience.
Yeah, so similar process to what you just talked about. If it is going to be a couple different competitions, we have set goals for that competition, right? And they're not going to be winning the competition. It might be like, all right, our goal for this, we got to understand, we're not trying to podium. We're trying to utilize this to work on like something that we've been focusing on for the main competition, whether it's transition time, muscle ups, a specific demand or limiter that we've been trying to fix. Like our goal is just work on this. It might even be, hey, your goal is just to get out there and have fun competing, right? Whatever it might be, your goal is to get out there and not have a game plan and just see how you do in workouts, understanding yourself and your pacing ability, right? And try to figure these things out. So having these set reference points that we're going for these events, and then debriefing. And to me, I'm sure you can understand this too. That's challenging because you do this with the athletes and every athlete's like, well, yeah, cool. Makes sense. And then the second, like they get out there and they feel that competition floor, it's like, oh, I didn't fucking win, or I placed this, like, this is shitty. And it's just a complete like downfall of where like, and it's like, no, like you have to remember what we're here for. Like we're not here to win. We're not here to podium. We're here for this reason, right? And it's a lot of conversations about that. And to me, like that's what we try to focus on in those multiple sets, which I think is what you're alluding to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this goes for both coaches and athletes. There's a huge opportunity to educate when it comes around competition time. Like I coach a gentleman now who wanted to do one of the like major qualifiers, but was very adamant that he didn't care about the outcome. Like he just wanted to do the qualifier. And then the moment we started doing the qualifier, got upset about how he did. Like he didn't want to deviate from training. He didn't want to like do a traditional build up to the competition or anything like that. He's like, I just want to keep training and I want to train through the qualifier. And, everyone's going to have their own opinions about that. I'm going to, deviate to what the athlete wants to do. Like we'll have conversation around it. We'll set expectations. But I thought that was wild how quickly the script flipped. And it's like, for the last 3 months, you said you didn't care. And the moment we do one and you didn't perform the way you thought you were going to perform, the entire world is imploding. And there's really there's such an opportunity in that to educate and have a really good coach athlete relationship on kind of bringing that back down and eating that piece of humble pie of like, listen, we didn't do any of the work that we realistically should have been doing for that thing. And like, you want to train through this. If you actually cared about it, the build for this would look drastically different. We wouldn't just continue training. So, as a coach, you spend more time looking at the results, at the words your athletes are presenting you with when you are in competition mode, and hold them accountable to, what they said in the months coming up. And I think you actually create better athletes out of it because they understand now that there is actually structure behind all of this. And you end up making smarter athletes because of it, right? Like you really get to coach cause and effect.
Yeah. Like I try and talk a lot about track athletes. Like if you look at the top track athletes in the world, the ones that win the Olympics aren't necessarily winning every gold medal at the events they do leading up to the Olympics, right? It's like a progressional build just to kind of test, see where they're at. And especially like the older training age you get, the less of those max effort competition in moments you have inside you, inside of a span of a few months, let alone a year, let alone a few months, right? So athletes got to understand that from a competition stage and knowing what the goal is for those events.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the last thing, there's a real common quote. I don't know the quote verbatim off the top of my head, but Louis, always talked about like, why the fuck would we ever focus on the good stuff? And, I find that quote really interesting. To me as an athlete, it makes perfect sense. To me as a coach, it makes a little bit less sense. Like the things when you talk about coaching Cam and, you spend a little bit of time focusing on like areas of improvement, but you have made a conscious effort to not overindulge in, celebrating the wins, but you do at least make some semblance of an effort. Mm-hmm. Is still important to focus on both the positive or the negative, or like realistically, like, dude, if you're dialed in an area, why are we going to focus in on it? Like, why are we going to put any sort of emotional or training energy into it?
Yeah. I mean, I go back and forth with this one. I think it depends on the person's training age, biological age, and also who the athlete is. But to me, I look like if an athlete fucks up and does something wrong, they know they did something fucking wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If they know they did something wrong. Why do we need to keep harping on that? Unless it turns into something that's very constructive of like, hey, like for instance, Camden had in a baseball game today, he had like 2 like soft pop-ups. So it's like, hey, I don't care that you popped up. This is why it happened. When you went into your stride, you lost your posture and your body started falling like forward over the plate, causing you to come under the ball a little. Hold that posture longer, get more line drives. Right? Have constructive assessment and feedback from what went wrong. And same thing with any sport. Hey, like you missed that lift. When you lifted off the ground, you allowed that bar to travel just a bit away from you. You know, you're lifting at 97%. It caused a deviation of bar path, came forward. Keep that bar tighter off the ground, be stronger on that first pull, right? Yeah, okay, that's why we did it. Now let's fix it for the next time. I think that's where it becomes very useful and successful between a coach and athlete. Not like, dude, what the fuck are you doing with those 2 fucking pop-ups? Like, and I hear parents say it all the time, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, obviously they knew there's a shitty fucking hit. Like, that's not doing anything for them, but now making them fucking second guess more shit, right? And at the same point, it's like when shit's really good, it's like, oh my God, you're amazing, you're so good, you're so good. But what are you saying to them when they don't do that? And then if you don't repeat that same action to their mind, in their mind, like, well, I'm a failure, I wouldn't do that performance again, right? So I try to keep it as level keel just for that one reason of the athlete, whether it's my son or a 23-year-old, understanding that I don't care in regards to them as a person, it doesn't matter to me where they fall, good or bad. But we got to learn from whatever we're doing and be able to move forward to get closer to the goal. That to me is what I care about. And that to me is where we need to have that unison together. You do great, cool, awesome. I'm proud of you. You execute the game plan, awesome. Let's move on and focus on what we have to do to keep maintain that. Okay, it didn't go as planned. Why? Okay, well, we got to fix A, B, and C. This is how we're going to do it. Let's move forward to get closer to the next goal, right? That's where it needs to be in my mind. It's sort of like this, I don't want to say disassociated caring because I hate that term, but it's, I don't even know what the fuck to use, but it's being constructive in the good and the bad to get closer to that same key point of what you're striving for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we can just wrap it up, and every setback is going to have a lesson, and there may be positive lessons, there may be negative lessons. Don't overemphasize either way, but make sure you are getting some form of data or feedback or constructive point so you can continue to get better. Like without the reflection, without the looking for the lesson, you're never going to take a step forward, or you're never going to make progress if you just kind of like live on this even keel.
Absolutely. Love it.
Sweet. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Hopefully you got some tools to kind of shift your perspective. If you're the athlete that, you know, maybe didn't show up the last time you went out and competed, I think it's real obvious that there are lessons to be had. You just got to be open enough for it. So again, our shameless plug, check us out on the Coach RX podcast. There's a bunch of cool podcasts out there. If you're an athlete coach, lots of great information, lots of cool coaches doing their thing, sharing their perspective. Until next week, we are out.
Later.